you know, there was a time when life actually felt like it was flowing, and dare I say, flowing with ease. I actually don't remember what that feels like. I don't remember what that feels like. I feel like that was so long ago. And now I'm just trying to rest in this place that I'm in, and I know that this is part of a major level up, otherwise it wouldn't hurt this bad. But it's like I'm having to learn to hold the threshold. I'm having to learn to hold the in-between where you just don't know quite what is actually happening, and you just have to just be okay with that and just be in this sort of middling kind of space. I'm actually feeling called to pull a card. So, into the unknown, underworld, depth, courage, facing your fears. It's really funny because the cenotes here in Mexico are connected with the underworld, and you know, all the sort of myths and stuff around them are connected, that they're, you know, entrances to the underworld. And I went to one the other day, and it was near Koba ruins, and I was having all of these really deep remembrances when I was there, because I've had these dreams, one particular dream, and then this kind of echo of it since I was about 20 years old, that I was in a sort of Mayan, in fact, yeah, it has been a series of dreams, I'm just remembering that other one now as well. It was around the same time, and it was like all these different kind of things that were happening in these dreams. This terrible explanation, but one of them, it was these beings, and I knew that they were otherworldly, or they were not of Earth, right? But they were in amongst these Mayan people, and they were singing this song that was like light language, and I didn't understand what light language was then in the way that I do now, but they were singing these, it was like the song of the horses, and they had like sort of dark kind of copper colored skin with like long red hair. And that was one of the dreams. And then the one prior to that, I was sort of mystic teacher kind of woman. I just knew that I was you know, was awake in the dream, and I knew that that's what I was like a teacher. And I was running because the village was being invaded, and I was holding hands with this slightly younger woman who, it felt like she was like my sort of you know, protege or student or something, and I was holding her hand, and we were running through this forest next to this river, and I had these crystal skulls in my hands, and I remember just digging in the earth, trying to bury the crystal skulls. And I've always been like, where was that? And I realized when I went to Koba, which is a set of ruins and a sort of jungle around the Yucatan Peninsula where I am in Mexico, and when I was there, I was like, this is it. This is where that dream was. And I just felt it so deeply, and all the activations coming through my body, really connected with a lot of Pleiadian energy as well, and the star there, which funnily enough is called Maya, and you know, piecing together all of these things. And it was just really interesting. And I then, after visiting the ruins, went to the cenotes, and there was no one around because it's not peak tourist season at the moment. So when I turned up, there was nobody there, and I was like, am I meant to pay? I don't even know, like I have no idea what's going on here. So then I just saw the steps going down into the cenote, and it must be like, I don't know, 50 feet beneath the, you know, the surface of the earth. They're deep down, or this one was pretty deep, because I've been to other ones when I was in Mexico before, but this one was really deep. And I was like, oh God, I don't think I want to go down. But something, it was like, I could hear the cenote speaking to me, and she was like, come now. And I was like, no, I don't want to do this, but I'm gonna go. So I start going down and down and down this sort of like spiral, like rickety wooden staircase. And I was like, nobody knows I'm here. I have no signal on my phone. If I die, nobody's gonna fucking know where I am. And just all of these like morbid, mortal thoughts were coming into my head. Yeah. This guy, this other version of me is like, yes, and this is the point of the initiation, you know, this is like what you're meant to be doing. That's, you know, facing those fears, facing your fears, facing, you know, that sort of prospect of death. That's shamanic initiation, essentially. And I stopped on the stairs, and I was like nearly crying, and I was just like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do this. But I knew that, you know, the mirror of it was the cenote is mirroring back to me, you know, my own fears, my own desire to not surrender, to not sink into that unknown, to not meet myself in that place of death. And I was like, I know I have to go. I just have to go. Like, there's nothing I can do. I am not the kind of person that can just walk out now. Like, if I'm feeling the call from spirit, I have to go, which is how I've got in this mess in the first place. Which is how I've got in this place of, you know, there was part of me that I could have stayed in Ireland. I could have tried to make that work, because that was the timeline I had envisioned for myself. But knowing me, and knowing when I get that call from spirit, I can't ignore it. Like, I'm not someone that can just put it off and go, yeah, let's just leave it. I'm just not going to be able to do that. Like, I'm just not able to just do that. It's just not who I am. And so that's why I'm in the middle of Mexico now, and part of me is, you know, resisting this so much, because I just want answers, and I just want to know, okay, well, for the next X amount of months, I'm going to be doing this. And it's so interesting to me that this is the last leg of my Saturn return. Saturn just went back into Pisces in September, and, you know, this is it. This is the last leg until I turn 59, 60, you know, of this particular iteration of this Saturn return. And it's really tough. It's really tough. It's, you know, and I know that that's what Saturn returns are meant to be. And I think back to the first time that I was in Mexico, and that's, you know, that's how I felt then as well. And that wasn't even right at the crux of my Saturn return. You know, that was just the sort of the shadow of it. And that was that was really difficult. That was a lot of, you know, what am I doing? And but then I had this sense of, oh, well, I'm traveling, and, you know, I hadn't started my business at that point. I was like, well, I'm just, you know, I'm traveling, like, and I was moving very intuitively. And, you know, then people would be like, oh, so where are you going? What's your plan? I'd be like, I have no fucking idea. I have no idea. You know, so there's elements that mirror where I'm at right now. But equally, I think because I do have a business now, I do have all of these things that to me require a certain sense of stability. I need to have internet. I need to have these certain things in order to facilitate clients. And instead I'm just being chucked, I feel like I'm just being chucked out here in the middle of the ocean and just being asked to swim. And I'm like, you know, usually I have a I'm not like a rigid planner, but some sort of idea of the direction that I'm moving in. And to not have that at all is really challenging for my mind. And so when I was in the cenote, I eventually I kept going down, and I was like, right, I'm gonna go right down to the bottom. And I was just crying, and I just sat by the water, and just the power, the voltage, the vortex of energy that you feel down there, it's just so strong. And when you're in there, it's like you're being imbued with the essence of this ancient consciousness that exists there. There's like no hiding from anything. And I kept thinking, oh my god, the roof is just gonna cave in. Like, what do I do if the roof starts caving in? Like, what am I gonna do? But I just kept hearing the cave just speaking to me, and she was like, just come. It's safe. It's safe, so come. Like, it's okay. Like, trust. And I was like, I don't want to do this. And so deeper I went, and I sat by the water and eventually entered it, and that was really, really powerful. And it was so interesting because after I had entered it, I came out, and then I just saw this little guy's head just poking out, and he was like, have you paid? Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, mate, you weren't there, okay? You weren't there, okay? Like, I would have happily paid, but you weren't at your post. Nobody was there. What was I meant to do? The cave was beckoning me. And I could tell, I was like, when he appeared, I was like, this was exactly how it was meant to be. This was exactly how it was meant to be, because if I'd have seen him and paid and all of that, this wouldn't have happened the exact way that it did. It wouldn't have, because I would have been like, well, that guy knows that I'm in here. And that would have alleviated some of the fear, So that as a metaphor for just everything that I'm experiencing right now it makes sense. It makes sense. So I'm just having to just completely and utterly surrender. And I know that this is making space for other things. I just don't know what they are. So here we go. Here we are. So thank you for joining me on this little chit chat, light language, and yeah, feel free to leave me a comment about anything, really. And speak to you soon.